Manchester City, Simon, beat Bournemouth 3-1 to put Champions League qualification into their own hands. And it was an enormous loving for Kevin De Bruyne, who said goodbye to everybody at the Etihad tonight. I mean, I know we don't go gushy on this show, go over the top about certain players, but by God, Simon, if you'd signed him all these years ago and he gave your club what he's given you, then I think, Kevin, take a bow. Take a bow for contribution.
Yeah. I mean, he's done very, very well from Manchester City because he's been part of an elite side and been rewarded very significantly for it. But he's been at the highest end of his game and been an influential figure in the reasons why Pep Guardiola's Man City at one point were dominating English football and looked like they were going to dominate it for a significant period of time going forward. Everything comes to an end. Interesting to see what he does next, because I saw certain observations from him about wanting to stay in the Premier League. That'd be interesting. I'd like to see players of that calibre.
Get him to Anfield on a free.
But where would he couldn't play in Liverpool's side, could he?
They got 60 games a season. He could come in as a 10, couldn't he? If they don't.
But why would he want to be part of a team that he's not front line?
Have you not seen the interviews when he was a kid? Liverpool.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I'm not suggesting that he wouldn't have some affiliation with it, but I'm saying that he wouldn't become a starting lineup berth, would he?
I think maybe as you get older, maybe he's not.
Maybe he's prepared to accept
Maybe. That. Would you rather do that or go and play every week at a team that's not going to win?
Would you love him at Liverpool, Danny?
I think everyone would. If they brought De Bruyne, it'd be a bit like when they brought McAllister in.
Yes.
I know McAllister wasn't quite at De Bruyne's level, but when McAllister signed, there was so many people going, what the hell is he doing?
Right.
You want to compete and win trophies and you're signing a 35-year-old from Coventry?
Yeah.
It's a strange dynamic, though, isn't it? If he's good enough, if he were to be, and I know we're sort of spitballing here, but if he were good enough for Liverpool, why he wouldn't be considered still valuable for Man City? Liverpool are the Premier League champions.
Yeah.
Man City are now part of the pack.
I'm not saying they are interested. I'm just,
Well, there's still a side story, Simon, that De Bruyne didn't want to leave City. And it's City who accelerated the exit.
Well, I think it is, because if you look at, he's probably wanting a certain level of contract. He's had a lot of injuries. He's on 300 grand plus 350.
Yeah.
And he hasn't been available up until this season for a prolonged period. The last 2 seasons, he's been out a lot. So if you look at it from a business point of view, I understand it completely.
And Pep was in tears last night. It was all emotionally charged at the end, and De Bruyne said goodbye. Interestingly, Danny, I want to put this to you this morning. I know they're not like for like, but I'll do it. A fond farewell for Kevin in his final Etihad appearance. Compared to the vitriol and booing towards Trent Alexander-Arnold, have the Manchester City fans shown the Liverpool faithful you can be classy with your goodbyes?
No, I mean, Liverpool have had loads of players who have had really classy goodbyes. When you think of Stevie G and Carra putting, their whole careers there and stuff.
Fabulous. That wasn't the question he was asking.
No, I'm going to get to it.
Talking about Trent.
Specifically about Trent.
But this one you can't compare, because Trent's leaving to a rival in the middle of his pomp. If Kevin De Bruyne left Manchester City at 26 years old, in the middle of his pomp, just after winning the Premier League and the Champions League, for example, he wouldn't be getting a fond farewell, would he? So it's.
But I would also willing to wager he wouldn't be getting booed and heckled the way that Trent Alexander-Arnold is, because there's some misguided sense of entitlement in that part of the world, that certain things can't be said about them and certain obligations upon people to behave in a certain way towards them.
But he's also not a Mancunian. So
that's my point.
Yeah, but if Trent wasn't a Scouser, that wouldn't have happened the same way. There's so many different dynamics to it.
Are there really?
Well, and he's at the end of his career.
Do you think there are, Simon?
Who are the comparable equivalents to the vitriol that Trent Alexander's got? Michael Owen?
Yep.
And Stephen McManaman. And both natives of that particular part of the world.
Steve McManaman and Michael now he's over the water, Chester. But Michael, they didn't know Michael was leaving. Right. So he didn't get a final game or games to be booed.
But the contempt that they hold him in now, because, ultimately, he talks about the pain he felt about coming back with Newcastle. He doesn't help his case by going to play with Man United.
No,
I get that. But
and Trent won more than the 2 names you've just thrown
that's why
in.
It's really unusual. That's why I didn't expect it when I said that.
No, but
I was surprised.
If it's down to contribution, the 2 should have been leaving their respective clubs with a very similar farewell, in my view. Shouldn't be so poles apart.
The way you phrase it, if it's down to contribution, yes.
Yeah. And that's what it should be down to.
But it's not.
Nothing else.
Football, we've talked about this before, the passion and the way fans think is very different to logic.
Trent's also been at Liverpool a lot longer than De Bruyne has been at City.
Exactly.
As a kid, he's grown up with them.
Exactly.
He's given everything to that club.
Correct. That's why it makes it, because he's been there as a kid and a Liverpool fan and all, that's what makes it what it is. De Bruyne hasn't had
No, that's what makes it, in my view, Liverpool fans should take a step back and think, go with our blessing.
No, but it's the opposite, because they think, how can you possibly think of leaving when you've, you know...
I mean, I get that. I get the feeling that actually we're a big football club. Why would you choose Real Madrid over us? And I don't like the narrative of he's been a great servant to the club. He's done what he should do, which is perform at his highest level,
and that's
which is what we should expect from people. And he's got the prerequisite rewards from it. And as a result of that, he's got the prerequisite outcomes to go to Real Madrid.
Yeah.
So I do get the idea that Liverpool fans sit there and suggest that, hang on a second, why would you leave us? We're the greatest club in the world. The only thing I disagree with is the manner in which they're voicing the displeasure. I think perhaps in the same way that people boo at certain times, turn your back on it. Have nothing to say about it.
Yeah, or sing Conor Bradley songs or whatever.
Or just not clap him. Do whatever you do. But to boo him, I think, is probably
I agree with you,
graceless,
Simon.
like I said last week.
As always with this show, when we start on something like this, and we didn't intend to get stuck on this topic, actually, but now that we're with it, we're with it. In terms of the comparative goodbyes and what each player took, De Bruyne last night was getting very much saluted for his contribution, and there was a sizable section of the Liverpool support who still feels that Trent has done them wrong by leaving for Real Madrid, hence they booed. Chris is a Liverpool fan who joins us live. Chris, we'll take your call. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, guys. You okay?
Good.
Hello,
thank
Chris.
you. Danny's with me, so too Simon. What do you want to say on this?
Right, I've listened to this going on now for the last sort of like 2 or 3 weeks, and I still don't understand why either the media or some of you guys haven't worked out why a lot of Liverpool fans are annoyed by what's happened. I genuinely don't think people have an issue with Trent wanting to move on. It was basically the way I think a lot of people feel that it's been purposely engineered for him to wind down the clock, and he's kept the fans in the dark and also the club to a degree. And I think a lot of people feel that he had no intention whatsoever of actually signing that contract.
Yeah, but in the process of, and you're one of them, are you, Chris?
I wouldn't boo. But please don't try and say about us being certain fans being not classy and kind of comparing the situation.
But it's not particularly classy to boo someone who's made such a contribution as he has.
Yeah, but also as well as saying it's not particularly classy to work down the clock.
But don't you think that's an assumption on your part? I mean, ultimately,
it is an assumption.
So you're basing your bias towards Trent on an assumption, and for all you know, Trent could have been quite prepared to have left a year ago, given Liverpool an opportunity to engineer a fee. Real Madrid may not have been prepared to do it. So what is the boy supposed to do? Just sign a contract with you guys to protect Liverpool when they won't protect themselves?
Be honest. Come out. Compare this situation. Right. Look at Bobby Firmino. Yeah. Danny went. So he was going off to Saudi. His contract was wound down. We didn't get a tap for him. And look at how the Liverpool fans serenaded him in the last couple of games before he left. That's what you call classy. Firmino was classy about it. The fans were classy about it. But coming back to the point, would I stand there and actually boo somebody who's played for the football club? Personally, no, that I wouldn't do that. That's not.
But that's the whole point, isn't it?
I think with Trent, the fact the contract was run down, I think some fans see that for what the club's got to blame for that as well. It could be either way, but I don't think that's the big gripe with the fans. The biggest gripe I'm hearing, the people I know, and family members, people I know, it's the fact that he's willing to go from here. Liverpool being successful, Kings of Europe, could be champions of Europe again soon, winning the title. This is their opinion, not necessarily mine, but it's like, how can you then jump to a rival who's going to compete with us to try and stop us doing that?
Right.
That's the bigger issue.
What before we hit the break,
and some of the things that have happened this season, cup in the ear.
So what is your opinion of it?
If it had gone to a smaller club, they'd have said, how could you leave for a smaller? He won't be able to win this argument.
No, you can't win it. I'm not saying you can't.
What is your own personal take in it, Danny?
I understand his reasons. But I also understand the fans who are angry, because I know what Liverpool fans are like, especially with their own.
Okay.
So I get it from both sides. I wouldn't go. I've never had the opportunity, but if I was, I knew I would never go anywhere. It wouldn't have bothered me. I'd have been what Stevie.
But do you think Trent will be looking at the De Bruyne situation last night and thinking, I wish I'd left like that?
Yeah, well, of course you would.
And if he got that, why didn't I?
Well, he knows why. He's a local. He knows.
It's as if he's committed some crime.
Well, he has in the Liverpool fans' eyes. You're leaving the club
Kevin
you
De
love.
Bruyne is a different relationship with Man City. He's part of a transformation of the Man City situation from what it was in the 60s. Well, Liverpool have been a dominant force in English football. The 70s, 80s, 90s, dropped off in the 2000s, still won competitions, won major competitions.
First Premier League trophy in 30
I know, but they were
years.
still winning things. Man City disappeared.
But he was part of that.
But Man City disappeared off the grid. Man City went out of the Premier League into the
So did
Championship.
Liverpool.
No, they didn't.
In terms of winning the Premier League?
I know, but they were still winning things. Man City went out of the Championship into League One. This is a reformation of this football club, a rebuild, and he was part of the era when Man City did things that had never been done before. Liverpool are doing what they've done before. So there's a different dynamic. And so with Kevin De Bruyne, he's part of a generation that actually catapulted Man City to new heights. So he gets flowers for that, whereas Trent Alexander-Arnold is part of a football club that's already had this period in its history before.
You never give me flowers.
Wait to see the Liverpool fans when Van Dijk and Salah have their last games.
Okay. With Postecoglou seemingly heading for the exit door and Amorim, the man for the long term, do we actually have a final here with a distinct lack of jeopardy for those in the dugout? Is it more of a free hit for Ange than it is for Amorim? So Alex Crook was in amongst the Tottenham media conference yesterday, and he put a question to Ange Postecoglou, basically on his future, and then Ange took over.
My future is assured. I don't like. Wouldn't be the first person who changes jobs, mate. We all change jobs. I'm sure you've had more than one job. My future's assured. I've got a beautiful family. I've got a great life. I'll keep on winning trophies till I finish, wherever that is. So don't worry about my future, mate. My future is not entwined with anything. Right? My future is assured, provided, God willing, my health remains and my beautiful family is beside me and my friends. There's nothing wrong with my future, mate. Don't stress, mate.
I meant specifically.
Sleep easy at night.
I'll try.
I'll be okay.
Playing it down, isn't he? Playing it down.
It's a good answer.
I'm okay.
Yeah.
I'm okay. Do you go with that, Simon? You
Well,
like that treatment?
He's not worrying about his mortgage, is he, when he wakes up, whether he's got the job or not? His life's not that bad. You've got to put things in perspective.
But he wants to be known as a winner rather than a loser.
If he loses this final this evening, and they do, as is potentially assumed will be the case, shuffle him out the door, then it won't have been a period of time that enhanced his reputation, because they'll look at, and we will look at, and others will look at as well, the fact that a lot of frailties have been exposed as far as Ange is concerned. He hasn't been able to deal with the media in a way that I think has helped him. And I understand why he hasn't done it, because I get some of the ridiculousness, and Danny and I were talking off air about the guy that put a question to him as a result of an article that had written, would he be a hero or a clown?
I'm going to get to that in a second.
And I think that's and Ange was very spiky back about that, and why should he not be?
Right.
But when he talks about assured, Alex Crook's question was, about his relationship with Tottenham Hotspur, not about the fact that he'll get another gig somewhere else, not about the fact he's got a beautiful family. And I'm glad that some of these football people appreciate the opportunities that have been afforded to them as a result of being in football, because it's the economic freedom that they've been given that enables them to have no worries about their future. A bit more of that would be quite pleasing, actually, when we hear about people whining about their lot.
Yeah.
But the reality is for Ange to win this trophy will be ultimate benediction and validation for him. If he does get shuffled out the door, he can go out the door saying, I told you, the landscape of the Premier League, not ideal, but I won him a trophy. No one can take that away from me.
And
if he goes
Champions League.
And I put him in the Champions League. So Daniel, you can thank me. By the way, I only got back the merit payments that you lost as a result of me finishing 17th, but that's a different discussion. But if he goes out the door without winning anything, it will hurt his future.
Well, listen, strap yourselves in, because, Simon, you've taken me beautifully to it. Postecoglou reacted angrily to a question from a journalist who I believe is Dan Kilpatrick of The Standard, who got into this match had previously suggested the manager's legacy was teetering between hero and clown, depending on the result tonight. And then Ange went for it.
Hi, Ange. If you win tomorrow night, this is going to be
remembered as one of the best seasons in the club's modern history. But kind of conversely, if you lose, it might be remembered for one of the worst league seasons in the club's modern history. I just wondered if you're kind of conscious that you're walking a fine line between kind of two very different types of infamy in history, really.
That depends on your outlook, Dan, but I'll tell you one thing, irrespective of tomorrow, I'm not a clown. I never will be, mate, and you're really disappointed that you would use such terminology about a person who, for 26 years, without any favours from anyone, who's worked his way to be in a position where he's leading out a club in a European major competition, for you to suggest that somehow us not being successful means that I'm a clown, not really sure how to answer that question.
Good lad.
Do you think Ange was right there, Simon, to use that moment to settle a score?
I think he was absolutely right to make the journalist accountable for what he said. I mean, you can turn around and say that you're disappointed within his performance. You can turn around and say that he has not done the job that ultimately Tottenham would have wanted to. But then to take him into an area where he's a clown, I don't think he's a clown. I think he says contradictory things. I think he's been foolish about some of the observations that he's made that open the door for the seeming level of disrespect that the media want to exhibit to him. But I think he's absolutely right. Balls out, put someone on the spot. Why should he be the only person that's put on the spot for the things that he does? Journalist writes a question, writes an article.
Poorly.
Does it poorly, in my view, insults him, and I think, well done you, son.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. Absolutely
But in your day, you didn't care what the media said about you.
I didn't like...
So is Ange right to bite back there?
I didn't... Well, it doesn't mean I wouldn't make them accountable. I didn't care about their opinions.
But you didn't take it personally, did you?
Well, yeah, I did, actually, yeah. I did take articles personally when people wrote things that were untrue, inaccurate, unfair.
And what you bite back?
Well, I kicked out the Evening Standard, ironically, this paper, because of the very things that they did. They wrote articles about Crystal Palace that started an article with about the first 2-3 paragraphs about what bird I was dating, what colour my hair was, and whatever thing I'd done recently in my private life. And I got fed up with it. And so it was a personal assault. And what I did was I banned the newspaper, and the editor of the newspaper then took it upon himself to phone the sponsors of the club to say, you're being denied commercial opportunities because Crystal Palace have banned us from press conferences, and your shirt sponsorship is not getting the coverage that you think it should be getting as a result of what you're paying. That was the arrogance and entitlement of that particular individual. So I do get it. Whether it's the right way to go, I think, chapeau, be a man, hold people to account. You want to ask me a question, by the way, how dare you call... I'm not a clown. He's not a clown.
No, you could... I mean, there's so many better words a journalist should use. I mean, inept, incompetent, whatever you want to say as a footballman, you know...
I'm not a clown.
Tactically unaware, but when you start becoming derogatory and...
Inept and incompetent aren't very complimentary terms either.
They're related to your work. If I call you a clown, I'm not relating that to your work, am I? I'm saying you're a clown. It's very derogatory.
You've called me worse.
Yeah.
I mean, right.
He did bite, though, Simon, and it's on the eve of this final.
I thought he could have tore him a new one. I thought he let him off the hook. He could have absolutely...
I mean, which way do you want it? He is what he is. I mean, Ange Postecoglou's got to be true to himself. And true... I mean, he's always been... I remember watching him do an interview with Craig Foster in Australia years ago when he was coaching, I think, one of the under-21s or one of the youth development sides in Australia. And he was spiky then, and he was having none of it then. And so his personality leads itself to that. So if he feels that the best outlet for him is to contend with an issue with someone in front of him, I think it takes courage to do it. Yeah. I think it takes a bit of substance about you, and I think why should journalists get away with saying things that they shouldn't be held accountable for? If you ask that guy, if he wrote a series of bad articles and then somebody wrote about him, you got journalists like this guy in the Evening Standard who's a complete and utter clown, I think he'd be pretty offended.
Yeah. Did you mind that, Tottenham fans, when you heard Ange there, and if you were watching on YouTube you'd see it, that he chose that moment to settle a score going into this final? Is that what you're having? Do you go for Ange's spikiness? Do you back him all the way on that? You might want to give us a call.
It'd be great to see him after if they win.
Oh, you come in the clown outfit.
The smile on his face, the actual...
Yeah. Come in with a squirty flower.
Satisfaction he will have.
Well, there was quite a contrast in the two media conferences yesterday. That was Ange's, and then Ruben Amorim, of course. As I say, a contrast. And we'll hear from Amorim in a second. So the day has come. Live tonight on talkSPORT, it is the Europa League final from Bilbao. It's Tottenham Hotspur against Manchester United. Simon and Danny are with me here in the studio at London Bridge, of course, the news building. You know where we are. Alex Crook, talkSPORT's chief football correspondent, is in Bilbao, where he has been now for a couple of days. And he's soaking up the atmosphere, of course, and he's been hearing about everywhere. Interviews here, there, and everywhere. Alex, good morning to you. So we were talking there about Ange's demeanour in the news conference yesterday, particularly with yourself, actually, when you popped up with a question. How did you find him yesterday? What's your assessment, Alex?
Yeah, good morning, guys. You join me by the banks of the River Nervioi here in Bilbao. Just behind me is the Manchester United fan zone. A lot of their fans already gathering and soaking up the atmosphere and enjoying the pre-match entertainment. Well, the pre-match entertainment yesterday, I think, was certainly served up by Ange Postecoglou, a typically spiky press conference. I know you've been having your say on that newspaper article and his response to being labelled a clown in the London Evening Standard. I basically asked him if he would consider walking away if he wins this trophy. Would his job be done? And he said, no, there's still much more to do here. But he told me not to lose any sleep over his future. He's going to be absolutely fine wherever he pitches up next, and he's going to go and win more trophies. It was very reminiscent, actually, of Erik ten Hag when I spoke to him after the FA Cup final at the end of last season, when, of course, there were serious question marks about his future.
Alex, it was quite a contrast then, presumably, when you went across the city to speak to Ruben Amorim. And we'll dwell on that now, because Amorim was asked about his job, and with Bruno Fernandes sitting alongside him, it made for an interesting few moments. This was a moment.
Postecoglou's just been in here answering questions about whether he might still be in his job, whatever the result tomorrow. Are you sort of surprised, grateful that you don't seem to be under the same kind of pressure, despite the fact that your team has a similar record to Spurs?
Who told you he's not? He is.
He wants my job. He'll be a very, very good coach. But he has to work on it in his mindset. He doesn't know how to deal with people. No. I don't know. I know that in this kind of club, also in Tottenham, but especially Manchester United, is strange, because you have some coaches that loses some games and they are sacked. It's hard to explain. I think people see what we are trying to do. I think people see that sometimes I'm thinking more in the club than in myself. People understand, especially the board, understand that we had a lot of issues that in the context is really hard. So I don't know how to explain. I don't know how to explain how the fans like me in this moment. So it's hard to explain. I will try to prove myself to the fans, to the board, but I don't have an explanation for you.
Alex, I'm coming back out to you, but Simon, you've leapt on that.
Well, I was listening to him saying that people know what he's doing. I'll be buggered if I know what he's doing. I don't think anyone knows what he's doing right now. He's losing games.
Yeah. I mean, is that a fair point, Danny? Nobody really knows what he's doing.
Well, I can only assume he means that, because he said about, speaking to the hierarchy and all that. I'm assuming he means them. They know what he's doing.
I think what he actually, with the benefit of reflecting upon it for 30 seconds longer, I think what he means is the latitude that he's been given by the fans puzzles him, and it may be because they know that he's speaking honestly, and that they know that he's got a difficult task on his hands, and they're prepared to give him some indulgence to be able to create an outcome that they believe that he'll be capable of achieving.
Yeah,
but the fact that he spends his entire time talking everything down is perplexing.
Yeah, Alex, it seemed quite a contrast to what we heard with a spiky Postecoglou to a relaxed Amorim.
Yeah, and I guess it goes one of two ways, depending how you read it. Do you read that Ange Postecoglou is feeling the pressure, or is he just so determined to prove his critics wrong by winning this trophy? Is Ruben Amorim perfectly relaxed, or is he too relaxed? I guess we'll only find out when the game kicks off tonight. But it is an interesting juxtaposition that Ange Postecoglou, I think, is going to leave Tottenham whatever happens this evening, whether he gets his hands on the silverware or not. And Ruben Amorim, who's got a worse points per game record than Paul Jewell when he was in charge of that Derby team that set a record low Premier League points tally, there are no question marks about his job at all. I wonder how long that can be sustainable, particularly if they don't win tonight and don't get Champions League football. That will affect their summer spending plans, Manchester United. And if they start next season badly and carry on in the same vein of losing every week, as Simon's already alluded to, surely at some point the board will question the manager.
Alex, I want to put it to you about how significant this is. Winning tonight, winning the Europa League trophy in itself. Before we do, and this raised an eyebrow or two as well, when Amorim was asked, you know, it's important for the winner tonight, is it not? It's important to get the... No, not really. Not really. And he seemed to mean that. Have a listen.
When I say that it's not the most important thing in our club, I really mean it. Because if you win Europa League in Manchester United, I'm really sorry, it's not a big thing. It's not a big thing. You can feel it here. You need to go for Premier League and for Champions League, and we are so far away that this is one step. That is my feeling, of course. Is winning a title, European title, but it's not enough, and I have that feeling all the time.
I wonder, Alex, you're there, we're not. I wonder what the Manchester United fans, specifically the ones who have made the trip at considerable expense, I wonder what they think when they hear Amorim saying, nah, it's not that important. And I mean that, it's not that important.
Well, I've got to say, most Manchester United fans are feeling fairly confident that they will get the job done tonight, and almost to a man and woman, they're all behind Ruben Amorim. I know Amorim himself is a bit embarrassed by the fact that the fans have got a chant, they sing his name at Old Trafford, because obviously he's not put many wins on the board. So I don't think any of those are going to question what he said there. Again, I guess it's just a way of trying to take the pressure off his team. But I see this final in two ways. For Tottenham, it's all about getting their hands on this trophy. Not won a European competition in more than 40 years, not won any silverware since 2008. For Manchester United, yes, getting their hands on a trophy is obviously a special occasion, but that Champions League place, I think, is equally important. A, to make sure they're dining at Europe's top table next season, but B, as I've already alluded to make sure that Ruben Amorim's got the funds to build the squad in his image. Because when he was talking there about the board know what I'm doing, I think he's made it pretty clear to the board, and I know he did when he met with Liverpool, when there was a possibility of replace Jurgen Klopp. He has one way of playing, and at the moment this Manchester United squad don't seem capable of playing in that way.
Alex, thanks very much indeed. We'll return to you throughout the morning, Alex, in Bilbao. Dan.
There's no way the fans will be disappointed with what Amorim said about the Europa League.
Hey, he's right, because it's not their Everest.
It's Man United.
Exactly right.
It's absolutely the right thing to say.
But do you think that will be their reaction on full time if they've lost to Tottenham tonight?
No, they'll be... If you go into a final, you know, you're going to be devastated as a fan if you've gone away to want this euphoric moment.
For the Manchester United of today, Danny, this is their Everest moment.
No, it's not.
A European trophy.
But they don't accept where they are. Man United fans don't accept where they are. They haven't got. They're not conditioned to being second rate, and they still have aspirations of being an elite football club. And the reasons why the fans may cheer his name, because they've got no one else they can cheer.
No.
They can't cheer the board. They can't cheer the owners. They can't cheer the players because the players are given nothing. So they're looking for him. He is their straw for them to cling on to. And that's why they're giving him support, because otherwise you're going to have a particularly disenfranchised, disillusioned, disheartened fan base that's got nobody to cheer, because none of the players are particularly heroes. Maybe Fernandes in recent weeks can stick his hand up and be a bit more of an inspiration to the fan base, but there aren't many others out there. They can't cheer the ownership model. They can't cheer winning games. So the only person they can look at is, well, he's our way out of this, so we'll support him.
I think win or lose, I don't think the way he wants to play is ever going to be the answer for Man U.
No. They're never going to get the results they want by the way he plays. No. When you hear Manchester United fans this morning, when you hear what Ruben Amorim said there, as we count down now to the final itself, and he says, when I say that it's not the most important thing for the club, that winning this final, I really mean it. I really mean it. It's not a big thing. Do you agree with that? Or are you like, no, hang on a second, it's a European trophy, and it is damned important, and we're in it to win it. Simon, the latest edition of the hugely popular the BetMGM The Lineup Show featured former Liverpool, former Roma player, former Fulham player, John Arne Riise, who is proving to have been a very popular guest on this occasion alongside Troy Deeney and the ever-present Tony Bellew. And Dan, I want to get your take on this because we had quite a reaction to it. John Arne Riise opened up on how it came to the end for him at Liverpool under Rafa Benitez. Have a listen.
I had no idea this was going to happen. I said nothing. And he said, I think it's time to go separate ways.
He just doesn't have the best.
And I'm thinking,
people skills.
And I'm thinking, 348 games, 7 seasons, won everything. And I said, what? Why? Now, and I knew there was like stories that he's going to sign a new left back, and I knew that he's told me then that Dosena is coming, and I had a choice. I can stay if I have one more year left and fight, but I know, new player comes in, they have 4 or 5 months. Yeah. They can do whatever they want for 5 months. How bad they are, you're not going to play. Yeah. And I can't restart at 8 to 27.
You know he's going to pick him no matter what. Regardless.
Exactly. Yeah.
Which is, I think his man management skills are just not good.
No. And I was 20.
Why tell you like that, John? Why get you there?
I was shocked. I was 27, so I couldn't sit on the bench for 5 months. Mm-hmm. And he said, well, if you need help with new club, I said, no, I got this. Don't worry. And so I walked down to the dressing room, and I asked him, I have 348 games. There's 2 games left. Can I come in as a sub in the last 2 to get 350? Because then I have 50 games average a season. Yeah. No chance.
Really?
Wow. Yeah. So I went down the dressing room. The guys asked me what happened. I'm done. What do you mean done? I finished. So I went to the car, cried a little bit in my car by myself, called my agent, cried to him. Because it was such a shock because I've been in the 70s. Everything happened there. Time. And then my agent said, don't worry, give me a few days, we got a new club for you.
Danny, John Arne Riise, he even said off mic to me, he's still baffled by it. So he's on 348 games, and the end came like that, because he thought he was going in to see Benitez, and the talk would be about a contract extension. Far from it, you're out. Did he do anything to deserve that treatment?
Well, I mean, I love John. He's a good player, and I played him at Fulham and Liverpool. But he's got the reality of what happened. He got told at the end of the season he didn't want him anymore. It was near the end of the season. In April, he played in the Champions League semi-final. So he played over 40 games that season. He wasn't disregarded. He was still being used. Fabio Aurelio was there, left back, who'd played ahead of him quite a few times. So he must have been realising, hold on, I'm not playing every week. Aurelio's playing more. Things might be on the, But if he wasn't told, I wasn't told. But he got lucky. He got told at the end of the season. I got told pre-season. 4 days before the window shut by Rafa. Rafa's ruthless. Some managers are. The reality is, John was waning a bit.
Did he pull you in and tell you like that, Benitez?
On the training ground, on the pitch.
Out on the pitch?
I'd finished training. Didn't even tell me before training. I knew anyway, because my agent found out and phoned me that morning. Sorry, the night before.
But you heard Riise there. I was on 348 games.
Yeah.
How about get me to 350?
For what?
How about sticking me on the bench and bringing me on?
Why would you do that?
Well, anyone who... I would have thought in your game, anyone that gets to something like 348 games has had a darn decent club career at that time.
I was near 250. Should I have said to Rafa, can you just give me 2 games to get me to 250?
But he bombed you there and then.
Why would you care?
So he did the same with Riise. Is that to be admired?
The manager's.
I think it's clarity, isn't it?
The manager's not there to get your stats or numbers up. There's a difference if you need an appearance to win.
I get that.
The manager's there to make the team better and get the club moving in the best direction he thinks, which is forward and better. And if he thought John... Look, as I said, John was playing a lot that season, so maybe he didn't realise, but Aurelio was playing as well. He picked him in April for the semi-final of the Champions League. So he wasn't off with the reserves.
He wasn't an outcast.
He wasn't an outcast.
Do you not read it as a sense of entitlement? If the manager has decided in clarity, with no particular motivation besides wanting the team to be better, and has said, right, so we're clear with one another, there's not going to be any whispering campaign, I'm not going to undermine you, I'm clear with you, I'm going to tell you myself.
He hasn't leaked it, he's told him to.
This is what's happening. Right? So you now know where you stand. I think one of the wonderful things in life is to know where you stand in anything, whether it's with your work, with your finances, your health, to know where you stand and for people to speak to you clearly so you understand exactly what your position is in the world is. Then when you hear somebody that's in that position and say, well, I'm entitled to a couple more games, my default setting is pack it in. My second setting is those that observe on it about man management. Rafa Benitez, irrespective of whether I didn't like the way he conducted himself at Newcastle, is a very successful manager. Most people that observe upon these things have never managed people in their own life, so they have no understanding of the reality of... There's no time for sentimentality. You can be considerate, you can be courteous, and you can be respectful. And I think being respectful is tell someone to their face, this is the decision I'm making. You might not like it,
but he seems to be a specialist in falling out with people. I remember he told John... You had John Terry telling you the same thing.
Oh, yeah, but there was an apples and oranges situation at Chelsea, wasn't there? They were never going to have Benitez in the same way they weren't going to have Benitez at Everton. And maybe he makes calls. But I tell you what, you live and die by definite decisions. And I will have someone that makes definite decisions all day rather than someone that fannies about.
Do you agree with the way he did it? Do you agree with the way he did it with Danny?
Well, the one thing
On the
I'll tell you,
I think we should do it in the studio.
Kick him out.
Absolutely.
Wait till the end of the show.
The one thing I remain consistent with when I talked about Rafa, and this is why it resonates with me listening to John, when I was devastated to leave, and he was ruthless. You know, I tried, and he was ruthless. You're not going to play. You need to go. Bah, bah, bum. You know what I mean? And I always said, even early after I left, at least he was honest, and he didn't have me hanging around in the background telling me one thing and doing another. Because I've had managers since then tell me one thing to my face and then do another. And that is awful. And that's even worse. And when I saw Rafa recently, for the first time, I had a long chat with him at Match Today. And we were having a chat, and I said the same to him. I said, well, you were honest. What more, you know? It's one of those things. What can you do?
But at the time, you hated him.
Yeah. He wasn't popular. He's not a popular manager, Rafa. Even with players who had success, they weren't his best. They didn't like the way he went about things. He was so concise and to the point and black and white and ruthless. There wasn't really a pleasant, nice side, you know, like a human side to him. It's just business.
Right. No sentimentality.
No sentiment.
You knew where you stood.
And of course, this is coming from people that ultimately get these guys the sack. Players are ultimately the ones that get managers the sack, yet they're entitled, to some extent, to have a different... And this is the dynamic of the industry. This is the culture of creating an image of what football people are entitled to.
Yeah.
You know, managers being, oh, it's terrible, they get
tough.
sacked.
It is tough.
Yeah.
You would rather a little bit more compassion. So I do get where John's
if you're being
coming
slung out your ear into the dole queue, I can imagine it must be tough.
No,
but
but
you're
the thing
not.
is
You're
with
being slung
John-
out in your ear to another lucrative contract somewhere
The
else.
thing is with John, and I did 7
You see
years.
when he makes a point of it, you or other players, he always addresses me.
7 years, I understand. He must have been upset because I did 7 years.
This is it.
It is hard.
Did you cry? Did you shed a tear, like John said?
Not there and then. I did a couple of days later when the reality kicked in. But John was still playing for Liverpool a few weeks before he left. So let's put it in perspective. He wasn't, you know, I get it when footballers go, oh, I'm training with the kids and this is all a bit hard.
You're heartless.
John was playing Champions League semi-final in April. He left in June. It's hardly cast
This is
to
the
wall.
responsibility of leadership, to lead. And there's always going to be people that don't like it, and there's always going to be people that comment, and I'm a great fan of Tony Bellews, but I would suspect that Tony doesn't know what it's like to manage people and to have responsibility for an all-consuming picture. He will blind his views on Rafa Benitez by his distaste for him because he's an Everton fan.
Yeah.
So there's not an honest narrative from Tony that I think sometimes in life, people say it's ruthless. It's not ruthless. It's straightforward. It's to the point. We're in the business of winning football matches. Yeah, I mean, what do you want people to do? To go, I really want to keep you, but circumstances are that we.
Well, no, what you want,
here
Simon,
we are,
is
fella.
what you want.
Out.
What you want is somebody to go, you know what, you are wonderful, and you have got lots of ability, but we're going to have to let you go.
That's insulting.
To encourage him.
But that's condescending, isn't it?
I
It's
know,
like,
I'm joking.
I'd love to give you another couple of games, but I'm afraid on this occasion I can't.
Yeah.
Beat it. Chelsea's Enzo Maresca, a week or more ahead of their appointment with Real Betis in Poland next week, the final of the Europa Conference League. And Maresca was none too happy because of a scheduling reason. All Premier League fixtures kick off at 4:30 on Sunday, with Chelsea travelling to Nottingham Forest. But over in Spain, their opponents Real Betis have had their final La Liga game move forward by 48 hours to help them with their preparations regards their appointment with Chelsea in Poland next week. And Enzo Maresca was saying, well, hang on, why can they get that and we can't?
I'm not happy, 100%. You cannot allow a team 48 hours more than the other team when you play European competition final. Or they play Sunday like us. Yeah, I don't know if it's from the Liga, from the Premier League, or from the UEFA. I think, I don't know how many we are in this room, but if I ask you, it's normal to play a final where a team has 48 hours more than the other team? I think it's not normal. It's not something correct. Now, if it's the UEFA, the Liga, or the Premier League, I don't know, to be honest.
So Real Betis, in other words, have got a couple more days to prepare for the match in Poland than Chelsea do. Has he got a point, Simon?
Well, the challenge for him is that you've got a domestic fixture list which all completes on the same time with a game with huge jeopardy for him, right?
Right.
Which is Nottingham Forest. Maybe, got the job done early. You could have put the reserves out.
That's true.
To pack it in. I mean, the bottom line is you're playing in a pub conference league. You should be able to win it anyway. I know Betis will be more formidable option than you've opposition you've had previously. No, he will be.
Is he getting his excuses in early?
No, I don't think so. If they lose this final, there'll be no excuse. I mean, they should be winning this competition. They should be where they are. They've got a huge playing squad. The one thing that apparently Pep Guardiola doesn't want. So maybe the disciple of Pep Guardiola doesn't feel the need to rotate players. He's rotated players all through this tournament. The challenge for him is he's got such a massive game on Sunday, isn't he?
Yeah, but you can't change it because it's meritocracy, isn't it?
But he's asking, why would UEFA allow... It's not UEFA's governance.
There's no chance they're going to change.
Why would La Liga?
Fixtures.
No, but he's saying
you're right about that.
Well, Betis have been moved though. La Liga will move it.
So he wants the Premier League to run itself the same way as La Liga does.
Yeah, but that's not going to happen.
Or he wants UEFA to oversee this and say you can't do that to La Liga. And what you do, so you want UEFA to run your leagues for you, do you?
Do you know when we
I don't think you do, and you don't want to run your league the way La Liga runs it because you can have the same money as La Liga got them, which is a fraction of what the Premier League gets.
I don't remember. Yeah. It's just bizarre these chats that come up regarding fixtures and stuff. If I look back at my own time, our last week of the season, we played Arsenal in the cup final on the weekend. We had the UEFA Cup final on the Wednesday, and we had to win our last game of the Premier League season at Charlton to get in the Champions League places.
All in the space of
a week.
A week.
But I don't remember ever anyone saying this ain't fair. I just remember everyone going, "What a week we've got." And he did he did change a couple for the UEFA Cup final, right. And he did change a couple for the Charlton game. Only 2 or 3. Gary Mack came in for UEFA Cup final. He didn't play the cup final.
Right.
But I don't remember any whinging.
You see, you're crucial to this, Danny, as a player, and at the top level as it was for you, and so is this. Even though it's, as you say, a pub Conference League final against Real Betis, I'm not so sure about that. But 48 hours of a difference in between the preparation time for Betis and Chelsea. Does it make much difference if you're a player?
It makes a difference if you're doing it every week. So the extra 48 hours after 2 or 3 weeks of playing every 3 or 4, yeah. But with the fact that Chelsea have been changing their team so much, asking their best players to play Sunday, Wednesday is not going to make a difference.
Yeah, but how did you handle what the schedule you just described moments ago? How did you handle that?
I just couldn't wait. I loved it. Couldn't wait for the next game.
So, what's the big deal today then?
There's been a narrative change over there. I think what's happened is, personally, we've talked about it before, I think what happens is we've got these managers under immense pressure.
That's it.
Talking about player welfare and the amount of games and fixture congestion. And what it does is it drips and feeds down to the players because they're hearing it from him. And then it's in the press, and then a player will go in a conference who's got a bit of authority. Gundogan or Jordan Henderson in the past has done it, talking about fixture congestion. It's like, hold on. You know, you're getting paid what?
Yeah, exactly.
And you're not just getting paid what? You're super fit. You've got chiropractors, physios, sports science, hydration, dietitians, chefs.
Yeah.
I mean, what world? How's it got to this?
But not only that, Simon. For the first time, actually, the owners are joining in, saying that this fixture congestion thing is a real and present problem. The Chelsea chairman and co-owner Todd Boehly has warned that the football calendar is too congested, and he feels that his players are facing too many games, as Maresca had a point earlier. This is Boehly.
You know, the challenge that we really have is how many matches these guys are playing. You know, the calendar is really tight, and, you know, they put in so much effort and energy, and the injuries are continuing to go up and up and up, you know, so I think, you know, we're going to have to revisit, you know, how, you know, what's the calendar look like, and how much football, you know, can they actually play. Obviously, they're built to play football. They love playing football. So we're trying to find the balance as to, you know, what's the right amount of football.
Yeah, what's your ideal calendar? What does that look like?
You know, that's not my job.
I have the answer.
That's not his job,
Hold on. This is a manager of Chelsea and an owner of Chelsea talking about fixture congestion when they've accepted to play in the Club World Cup. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. I'll tell you what we'll do. We'll take the 60 million and go and play in a nonsensical crap tournament in the boiling hot heat when all the players should be off, recuperating, ready for a long, hard season, but we'll whinge about playing a team from La Liga who are mid-table 3 days after a Premier League game.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, Danny's right, Simon. Boehly is the first one to break ranks as an owner and talk about this along these lines, but you can't have cake and eat it. too many games. These guys are playing at such a high level. The fixture congestion, the calendar's something we have to look at.
No one
but
disagrees
he would love Chelsea to win the Club World Cup that's coming up at the end of the season.
I don't agree with the characterisation of it. I don't think anybody's breaking ranks. Everybody can see the argument about scheduling. Everyone can see the argument about scheduling, but no one is sitting down. Even him is, And I've always been in the camp of defending him. Now I'm going to call him the idiot American that other people have called him, because it's one thing if you're going to say something, why doesn't somebody come up with a plan? So if you want to come out with these little tropes about what the fixture list looks like and how it's going to be, we all know why there's so many fixtures. Even Todd Boehly, at his most obtuse, knows why there's so many competitions, and he's put his team into one in the Club World Cup Championships because the economics of the game did tell that the way to raise the revenue is to play more fixtures. We all know that, right? So if you want to do something about it, Todd, stop paying ridiculous salaries and stop paying £100 million for players. You don't want to do that either. If you think they're playing too many games, you must have a thought process about what the fixture list could look like, or shut up. Because my argument with Keogh and other people is, I agree with you. I accept the argument. I don't want them playing them with so many games. The only reason they're playing so many games is because the finances of the game are dictated. So if the solution is mid-season breaks, or if the season is longer seasons, or whatever the solution is, but no one's got a solution. And I get tired of people making observations with no solution. We can all do it. We can all turn around and say, stop the boats. How are you going to do it then? Oh, well, I don't know about that. Right. How are you going to do something in football, which is rearrange the fixture list to be able to meet the expectations of managers, players, player welfare and finances? And then everyone sits down and shuts up.
Have you thought about a solution?
I'm not complaining about it.
No, I don't mean to catch you out. I'm saying, have you thought about it yourself? Because you're good at that. Do you see a solution?
No, I haven't, because I've looked at the economic. I think the solution is the economics of the game, but that genie's gone. And we're not going to get it back. And we're certainly not going to get it back when you've got people like Boehly that are prepared to spend money like they're going out of fashion, like a drunken sailor on shore leave. They're going to do exactly what they want.
I think it's really easy for the clubs. I don't get it. It's really easy. You select and prioritise which tournaments are most important.
It's rotate.
Yeah, and you use the players you've got in a 25-man squad that we've never had before.
You've got Pep Guardiola saying, I don't want that many players. It's a difficult thing for me to manage, having all these players. Right? You can't win. So what my solution really is shut up. There's my counselling therapy.
And anyone else who's out there, shut up.
Dr. Simon Jordan's therapy. Shut up and get on with it.
May the 21st, the day the two of them fought it out over in Bilbao for the rights to be European champions. The trophy in question is the Europa League. It is the Europa League final, and the prize for the winner is considerable. Even though Ruben Amorim at Manchester United says it's not all that important to me or United. We shall see. We shall see. And as I said, the prize is considerable. Danny is alongside Simon, and I have to share this with everybody because financial fair play expert Stefan Borson was coming into the studio just moments ago, and Danny told me in front of Simon, this is great, Jim, this is a moment that Simon is educated in the financial field of play. And I have to say, Stefan, Mr. Murphy and I fell off our chairs laughing.
No, I didn't laugh at my own joke.
No, you were worried at one stage with the look that Simon gave you. And then we moved on.
I don't see myself as a sort of Bob Cratchit character leaning over the ledger studying the details of the last copper coin that I inherited. I don't see myself as that. I'll leave that to Stefan.
You were always going to get that reaction, Stefan. Good afternoon.
Hi, how you doing?
Very well. I'm glad you've got time out to join us this lunchtime. And it is a big day for these two clubs. So, Stefan, the rewards are huge, but only for the winner. Because am I right? Tonight, the losers leave Bilbao with nothing.
Well, to an extent. I mean, the thing to just note is that Spurs have effectively, if it was Spurs, I'm sort of assuming United are going to win. I don't know why I've done that. But the losing team will still have effectively recovered what they've lost by their very disappointing league performance. So if you look at it, they've lost 10 places, round about £3 million a place between where they would have expected to finish and where they're actually going to finish. Maybe more, maybe 12 places.
Yeah,
but you know, sort of £35 million, £35 million. Both of them in their run to the final will have made about that before the gate receipts. So the prize money so far that they've accrued as they sit here right now is about 37 million euros each.
Is that right?
Yeah. So on top of that, the winner will take another 7, And on top of that, they get a place in the Super Cup.
Oh.
And we'll probably come on to the Champions League, but they also get the Super Cup, which is also worth another €4 million. So, and if you win another million, but you doubt either of them are going to.
That's 50 million.
So it's not bad. Even for the loser, it has compensated for a very disappointing league season. Because if they hadn't have had these runs, I mean, these are very serious consequences of losing 50 million and also not having the Europe. So they've compensated with that. And then, of course, the challenge that they've got now is next season, because one of them is going to have 0 Europe.
Exactly. And the winner has Champions League. And that's crucially important. And if you remember rightly, and we have this clip, Stefan, it wasn't that long ago. And Simon had his own view in it, and many people went with Simon on it. How can this be that Sir Jim Ratcliffe, speaking to Gary Neville, was saying, before they came in, if he hadn't done certain things, if they hadn't taken certain measures, they were looking at running out of money at Manchester United by Christmas. This was the moment he told Neville that.
We increased the cost of running the club, which are the operating costs of running the club, so just the people and the fixed costs, if you like. So all the costs, excluding the player costs, we increased the cost by £100 million in the last, 7 years, since 16. And the player salary bill increased by £100 million. So that went from 150 to 250, this went from 170 to 270. And in that period of time, the top line, the revenue, increased by only £100 million.
£270 million deficit.
So you just finish up with a situation which is untenable. It doesn't work. If every year you spend more money than you earn, ultimately that's the road to ruin. And unfortunately, and it's not until we mentioned it a couple of times today, it's not known, Manchester United would have run out of money at the end of this year. November this year, the club runs out of cash.
The club runs out of cash. We'll return to that in a second with Stefan, with Simon and with Danny, because in the meantime we're going to head out to Bilbao, and Alex Crook is in the company of a former top Manchester United player. Alex.
I have indeed, Jim. You join me at the Manchester United fan zone here in Bilbao. A number of former United players, Wes Brown included, are about to go up on stage and address their adoring fans. Delighted to say Wes joins us now. First and foremost, how are you feeling about the game tonight?
Yeah, I'm excited. Honestly, it's going to be a tense one. But listen, it's been a great day so far. Lots of fans. It's great what everyone's put on, and hopefully at the end of the night, we're all celebrating again.
Does it save the season after what's happened in the Premier League if United still come away with silverware?
If you're being honest, yeah, simple as that. Not been good enough in the league, but obviously this is an opportunity to get into Europe, and lots of things can come from that. So big occasion for both teams, yeah.
And even though things haven't been great since Sir Alex Ferguson left the football club, this is Manchester United's 9th final in 10 seasons. In the last couple of years, they've tended to get the job done when they need to. Might that cup final experience be a deciding factor?
Listen, I'm hoping so. Like you said, the last season a cup final, season before that. So you've got to put that. You've got to say that's going to help a little bit. A lot of the same players will understand the occasion. Like you said, the experience, so we just hope they bring that into tonight's match.
How big a bonus is it, the fact that Lenny Yoro has travelled, that Diogo Dalot is fit again, that Joshua Zirkzee probably is going to be fit enough to at least come off the bench?
Yeah, you always fit when there's a final, I'm joking. But yeah, listen, it's great for the manager. He's got a few options there now, and a big one obviously being Yoro, because he was starting to play outstanding. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see, but the manager's got a lot to play with now, yeah.
And why is it you think that this team are capable of turning up when they really need to, like that FA Cup final last season, but week in, week out they seem to fall short?
That's the big question. I honestly don't know. I watched every single game, and we're putting high performance levels for periods of games, and why we can't do that over the full 90 minutes, I'm not sure. I just know that on the day, and especially in this competition, they've turned up. Whether they were down and out, they've always put everything into it.
And one of the key reasons for that is the form of the captain, Bruno Fernandes. He spoke to us in the media yesterday, seemed very relaxed. If he scores tonight, he wins the Europa League Golden Boot, 20 goals for the season. Could he be the match winner?
he could. Listen, I think he sets the standard for everyone else to follow at times. You know, he has took things into his own hands, sort of thing. So I'm sure we'll see another brilliant performance from him tonight, and if he gets that goal, it's brilliant for him individually as well.
Wes, thanks for joining us. Enjoy the day. There you go, Manchester United icon Wes Brown live in Bilbao.
Top stuff, Alex. Thank you very much indeed, Alex Crook with Wes Brown over in Bilbao, and there'll be more coming from Alex, of course, right up until kick-off, all the way through the afternoon over in Bilbao, as I say, leading up to the final itself. Stefan Borson's alongside Simon, myself, and Danny this lunchtime. Stefan, we were hearing from Sir Jim Ratcliffe in conversation with Gary Neville, saying and emphasising the fact that they had to take certain tough measures to prevent the club from running out of money by Christmas. Whether that was on the cards as to whether or not it was going to happen is another matter. There are suggestions that savings made by Ratcliffe and United following redundancies has given the club more headroom when it comes to financial rules, with Amorim being given more than 100 million to spend this summer. And that would be increased, would it, by the sales of the likes of Rashford, Antony and Sancho?
Well, the starting point is all nonsense that the redundancies had anything to do with keeping United solvent. I mean, if you look at their own statements that they made to the New York Stock Exchange, they said themselves that they had cash available, and they gave a statement that they had at least 12 months of cash from when they made the statement in February. So it was never about the redundancies, and the redundancies anyway, to let go something like 250 people is not going to save them a material amount. Clearly, the key aspect of United's ability to fund the next stages will be, one, dependent on whether they can remove Rashford, Antony and Sancho from the wage bill. If all of those players come back, they've obviously got a significant issue because they're all paid, let's say 20 million a year average. But that's a very significant amount of money in the grand scheme of things, especially given their wage bill in total is probably around about 350-ish now. So much more dependent on the player sales. And then, of course, Champions League is going to make a very material difference, because we've got a situation now where any half-decent side in the Champions League, if you to look at what the way it works with the Swiss model, any half-decent English side is going to generate something like 80 million euros, even if they go out at the playoff. So even if they don't get to the round of 16, you're going to get to about 80 million euros of prize money, which compared to even winning the Europa is about double. So the worst case scenario for an English team, if they can qualify for that Champions League, they're going to get 5 home games, they're going to get 10 games, and then that's the worst case scenario. They go out the playoff. So
Stefan, this is a game changer tonight for one of these two.
Yeah, for one of them, it's a game changer
football and the rewards.
Yeah, in terms of what they can leverage. Then, of course, Danny, we're much better placed in terms of the attractiveness of a team that's in the Champions League versus a side that's not in any Europe at all, and that's going to make a big difference. It's not just the fact that you're qualifying for the Champions League.
Yeah,
you're going to have, if you look at the season, both Spurs and Manchester United are 15 games in the UEFA Cup, in the Europa Cup, right? So you're going to lose 15 matches. You're going to lose 7 home games. So even quite apart from the UEFA prize money, you're going to lose a lot of home games. You're going to clear a whole patch out of your calendar for next year.
Sure.
And that, of course, is also significant, especially where you've got a stadium that's holding 60 to 70,000 fans.
Stefan, it is thought if Manchester United win tonight, and Amorim is on record as saying this thing's not important to us, it's not significant. It is. It surely is.
No, you're categorising that the wrong way.
Big funds will come his way.
Yeah, whatever.
Big funds will come his way if they win it. We're talking about between 100 and 200 million being made available to them if they come out the other end of this with a trophy.
But they've already done 100 million quid already. If they've done Cunha and they've done Liam Delap, which is suggested they have, they've already done 100 million quid, irrespective of this outcome.
Yeah, I mean, look, you've got to the difference between the two scenarios of qualifying and not. You've not just got the lack of any Europe at all and the games we've talked about and the possibility.
Yeah,
you've got also £10 million reduction on the Adidas deal that they've got. So there's that used to be a case where if you missed 2 seasons in the Champions League, then you had I think it was a 20% reduction of the deal. Now it's very simple. You're not in the Champions League, you lose £10 million. So they will lose 10 million if they're not there. So that's another hit. They currently don't have a training sponsor. So Tezos, which is their blockchain and training kit sponsor, that expires in the next couple of weeks. And they currently don't have anybody there. And you would think that if they're in the Champions League, that would be easier to sell that property to somebody else. So there might be a hit there. So it's a very, very big difference in terms of what it's going to mean to the club next season if they're in the Champions League. Probably sort of total, let's say, £100 million, right? A little bit of extra cost, of course.
Which is your main driver for the observations about that? Because the PSR side of things is one thing, the cash is another. Tottenham will find themselves in a position where they won't have the cash. They'll have the PSR headroom, but they won't have the cash. United might have a challenge with PSR, but they'll always have the cash, because the nonsense that was trotted out from Jim Ratcliffe last November, you've got 3 billionaire owners in sitting in Man United that can well make available cash if they choose to, and they can well make available cash from whichever funding facilities they want, because they've got no problems around borrowing United, whereas Tottenham have already understood and suggested that they do have problems.
Well, there's two aspects. I mean, first of all, Spurs, if they were to qualify for the Champions League, that would fix the cash problem.
Indeed.
Right? So it would be a very big boost on the cash basis.
Okay.
How easy it is for United to raise additional equity, I think, is a bit of a moot point. I mean, you've got two shareholders there. What price would that cash be raised at? They have the public shareholders in New York, and so there's the dilution element to it. And can they raise additional debt? I think that is a big question mark. They've got one $700 million facility that actually, there's an interesting story in the FT yesterday where it effectively says if they don't qualify for the Champions League, there is a possibility that they can use it to avoid one of the covenant breaches in a similar way that we talked about with Spurs. But I wonder how much more debt United could actually raise. So unless Ratcliffe and Glazer are both going to stick their hand in their pocket, I think they may well have a cash issue similar to the Spurs one. I mean, we'll have to see. But I do think that the cash issue is dealt with, obviously, by Champions League qualification, just because of the revenue that comes through the gate and also the prize money.
Stefan, I'll bring in Danny at this stage. Danny, say Tottenham lose tonight, no European football. Is that a headache now going ahead in terms of attracting new players?
Well, it puts you in a worse position, yeah. But ultimately, what Tottenham generally do anyway is look for young, talented players who they can bring on and improve. They've made some terrific young signings already. So in some ways, it makes it one dimensional for the manager going in. He can only look at a certain level of player.
Yeah,
you're not going to get the top tier players going to Tottenham if they're not in the Champions League.
But they need a lot more than young and talented players to improve on 17th.
I don't think they do. No. Not to improve on 17th. To get in the top four, yeah, you might have a point. To improve on 17th, you just need a new manager.
Can you attract a new manager if you don't win this tonight?
There's millions of good coaches out there who'd love the job at Tottenham and would do it without
Champions League football.
Let's get it right. Arne Slot walked into Liverpool and won the league without spending. I'm not saying Tottenham are the same as Liverpool, but you can improve a team with coaching ability and with good motivation.
Yeah.
You've also got the flip side of not having those 15 extra games. I mean, you can see what's happened with Newcastle this season. They won the Carabao. Less injuries. You don't have the same first team squad need. And it's sort of the flip side of the Crystal Palace situation. They're already talking about the extra investment they're going to have to make because they've got the Europa coming up and because they've got, again, a minimum of probably 10 games, maybe even more. You know, the quality of the Premier League teams means that these teams, in the Europa in particular, are going to get to the later stages.
Stefan, before you leave us at 12:30, news came through to us yesterday. Leicester in big trouble, facing the threat of a points deduction after being hit not by one, not by two, but 3 new charges by the Premier League. Are they heading for a points deduction?
Well, yeah, they're going to... I think they're certain to get a points deduction. The question now is whether they can really quickly get around the table with the Premier League and agree effectively a settlement. And if I was them, what I'd be doing now is I'd be saying, we will accept almost whatever you want to put in front of us in terms of a settlement. So if you want to put 12 points for this breach, we'll take it. And let's get the independent commission to sign it off, and let's try and do it before the AGM of the Premier League, before we're actually relegated. We'll take the 12 points in this season. We'll finish 2 places lower in the league. We'll finish bottom of the table. We won't finish third bottom. We'll have the hit of 2 places. So that'll be about a £6 million hit on top of the 12 points, and it keeps them then clean for next season. Now, I think it's going to be very difficult for that to happen. They probably were surprised.
Is it fair if that happens?
Well, look, it swings and roundabouts. At the end of the day, they should have been penalised this season for the breach that they're alleged to have committed. and will admit to. I mean, I don't think there's much doubt that they breached. They probably breached by probably 30 million quid, maybe even a little bit more. So the sanction is going to starts at 3, probably another 3 on top, but they don't have any mitigation, because if you look at the things that they're charged with, the sorts of mitigation that you get for early admission and cooperation, not only are they not going to get that as mitigation, what the Premier League done is charged them for breaches of those things, i.e. they've charged them for non-cooperation, so they're looking for more of a penalty. So I'm saying, get to the Premier League, say, we'll accept almost whatever you want, we'll admit it all. All we need to do is sign a settlement agreement effectively in the next 7 days. Now, I don't know how feasible it is, and people would go crazy about it, but this is the season. This is the season that it should really sit in. It should sit in this season. Only because they took 6 weeks.
Because it's not much of a punishment otherwise.
Correct. There was a 2-day hearing at the beginning of April to deal with these matters. The Premier League should never have appealed and looked for a perverse view
it's a punishment if it happens next season.
Yeah.
Now, the key, your point there is there's not much of a punishment. It's punishment is if it happens next season. This season's done.
Look,
so for them to be able to engineer an outcome where they can tap dance their way around and ultimately take a sanction that means nothing to them, it means 5 million quid.
So where's it going?
Well, it won't be palatable, but really, I think in many ways that is the correct outcome, and they'll probably have to still deal with a 24-25 potential issue, but I suspect they can't get there now, because what's happened is that 2-day hearing then took 6 weeks to come to a decision, and it's just left them with not enough time. But they're going to have to get to a point now where they cooperate really very, very aggressively in a positive way with the Premier League, because otherwise it's going to be a very significant points hit next season. Not 12 points, because I think we're capped, almost certainly we're capped at 8 points. Slight complexity with Leicester next season, because of course, they're a Championship side and they're being prosecuted by the Premier League. So it's a slightly odd situation.
What a mess, isn't it? Stefan, fantastic. In a word, who wins this tonight, Mr. Borson?
Unfortunately, I think United will win, but what do I know?